Okay, let's get into this. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a really interesting document. It's a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU,
Right, signed pretty recently, actually, May 18th, 2025.
and it sets up a formal agreement between two organizations based in Nepal.
That's it. Salyani Technologies Pvt. Limited and the Wildlife Conservation and Research Endeavour, or WildCare, as they're known.
So, Salyani, they're a
Yep.
tech company, right? Business automation, digital solutions. But they also have this nature and conservation wing. They're in Chitwan.
Yeah, Fatpur 10, Chitwan.
Okay.
And they're partnering with WildCare, which is, well, a nonprofit, very active in conservation work on the ground.
Located in Pulchok, Lalitpur. So different locations, different sectors.
Exactly. And the MOU, it spells out the core purpose pretty clearly.
Which is?
Basically, to establish a collaborative partnership. The goal is to jointly implement projects related to conservation, behavior change, and digital solutions.
Right. So, the big question this raises and what we'll explore is what happens when a tech firm and a conservation group formally team up like this? It's quite a specific combination.
It is, and what's really insightful in the document is how they plan to, well, manage that combination, how they'll bridge tech and field work.
Okay.
The MOU is quite specific about the division of roles, who's bringing what to the collaboration.
How does that break down then? Who does what?
So Salyani Technologies, they're officially the technology partner. Their job is developing, managing, and supporting all the tech components for any projects they agree on.
Like building apps or data systems, managing online stuff?
Precisely that, building the digital infrastructure, essentially.
Or WildCare? They handle the conservation substance.
Exactly. WildCare takes the lead on all the conservation aspects. That means designing and delivering behavior change training for communities, for instance. And providing the critical technical input on the conservation content itself, making sure it's scientifically sound, relevant, plus handling the field coordination.
So Salyani builds the engine, WildCare steers, based on the conservation map.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. Salyani provides the tech tools, WildCare provides the conservation expertise and the ground connection.
It really formalizes this idea that modern conservation often needs tech, doesn't it? But that tech is kind of useless without the real-world knowledge guiding it.
Absolutely. And the MOU makes a point of stressing things like clear communication, transparency, and consulting each other beforehand.
Which sounds standard, but probably vital when you have partners from such different fields, different ways of working, maybe?
Crucial. Absolutely crucial for keeping things aligned and avoiding misunderstandings down the line, making sure everyone's on the same page before they act.
So how do they plan to actually do things together? How do they decide which projects to take on under this MOU?
Well, the agreement says they plan to jointly participate in relevant tenders, funding opportunities, and project proposals.
Okay, so pooling their expertise to go after projects.
Exactly. It lets them leverage that combined strength. Think about it. A project needing sophisticated tech and deep conservation insight. Maybe neither could win that alone.
But together.
Together, they're a much stronger package. They'll define their specific roles within each proposal they put together.
Yeah, and I noticed something about project-specific agreements. It's not all covered just by this one MU.
Good point. Yeah, the MOU acts like the umbrella agreement. It sets the overall framework, the principles.
But for the specifics.
For each actual project, say, developing an app for tracking wildlife or a tech-based education program, they have to draft a separate, detailed agreement just for that.
Okay, that makes sense.
That separate document will spell out the exact scope, the specific roles for that project, the timelines, the budget, deliverables, all the nitty-gritty details.
So the main MOU establishes the why and the who, and these project agreements handle the what and how for each initiative. Keeps it organized.
Precisely. It allows for that overarching partnership while keeping individual projects tailored and, importantly, accountable.
And the guiding principles they list are pretty standard, but important. Mutual respect, shared accountability, open communication. They even mention regular meetings to track progress.
Foundational stuff, really, but essential, especially when you're navigating, different organizational cultures.
Right. So the MOU itself kicked in on May 18th, 2025, the day it was signed.
And it's set to be valid for 5 years from that date, unless, of course, they decide to terminate it earlier with written notice.
And we see the signatures confirming this. Maharaj Patel, the director for Salyani Technologies, and Dr. Rama Mishra, the president for WildCare.
Yeah, shows clear buy-in from the leadership on both sides. They're committed to this collaborative model.
So wrapping up our look at this document, It's more than just paper, isn't it? It's a blueprint for how these two very different organizations plan to formally combine their strengths.
Definitely. It lays out the vision, the roles, how they'll work together, the principles for the next 5 years at least.
It really highlights a recognition, I think, that today's conservation challenges often need solutions that go beyond just fieldwork. Integrating digital tools, strategic communication.
That seems to be the core idea, bringing tech into the conservation fold in a structured way.
And maybe the thought to leave you, the listener, with is this. How crucial do you think these kinds of cross-sector partnerships really are? Deliberately merging fields like digital tech and on-the-ground conservation. Is this the future for tackling complex environmental problems effectively in our modern world? It's certainly a structured attempt to amplify impact.